Welcome to the Work Well, Live Well podcast. I'm your host, Leanne. Drawing on the foundations of wellbeing science, positive psychology and neuroscience, I share tools, tips and strategies for people to intelligently manage their wellbeing so they can flourish into working well and living well. In this episode, I'm talking with Jamie Getgood about redundancy with heart. With General Motors Holden closing its manufacturing operations in Australia, Jamie undertook leadership in the development of a best practice transition centre to support all employees in receiving support, advice and training to help them transition into new work. He was instrumental in not only developing internal strategies, but creating networks within multiple government departments, supply chain and community groups. Jamie's passion for people, his focus on employee engagement and the success of the business is evident in his achievements. Jamie was named as the South Australian and Australian Leader of the Year at the Australian Excellence Awards in 2017. These accolades and his drive to support all people have seen him develop a reputation as a leader in the transition space in this country. So let's get started. Jamie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
I'm so pleased to be speaking to you about such a really important topic. Redundancy is a tough experience for those delivering it and facing it. And having experienced my own redundancy that left me feeling lost and uncertain, I was amazed by the commitment to support your workers as they faced redundancy. Can you help listeners understand the situation and some of the challenges that were faced by the organisation at the time?
Yeah. Look, if I was to talk about the Holden story, I can't tell you about the closure and redundancy without telling you the background. Obviously, we had been threatening, or the media had been threatening, that we were going to close for a number of years. And the reality is that we had a leadership style that was not looking after our people. We were very command and control, very aggressive. In fact, we were probably militant, it is probably a good word. And when I joined the organisation, it was clear that we weren't performing as an organisation. So the background behind why we did what we did when we announced closure was that we had realised that by taking a people-focused approach to leadership, we actually could make a difference with our workforce. And I won't go into the whole culture side behind that, but long story short, we went from a bottom quartile business when our culture and our leadership wasn't performing where it needed to the number one car plant in the world in a 5 or 6 year period. And that was all based on changing our leadership to be people-focused. And part of that people-focused approach was having a workforce that trusted us and being transparent and putting them first when it came to a number of things and not just being about metrics. And our business results improved significantly. So when we got to the point of announcing closure, it was very clear to us that we could do what every other company does when they have to close a business. And that's, let's not tell anyone until the last minute and close the doors. Well, we couldn't do that. Our heart now was for our people. We had seen the benefits of being transparent, and we thought we have to do the right thing and give our people as much notice as possible. So we gave our people 4 years notice, and then we decided, well, that's great, but that now creates an expectation from some people, but it also means we can do something a little unique and create a transition program that helps them leave with dignity and respect. So we built a world-class transition program, which we've won awards for, and I have been able to share around the world. And we went to every possible length to support our people over that 4 years. Everything from helping them understand themselves, the environment they're in. We did a whole activity around healthy body, minds, and relationships. We supported their career and their future career and helped them retrain in completely new environments. And the key for that was good on the transition side, but on the redundancy side, we completely reinvented how we did redundancy. So instead of just pulling people secretly on a Friday and marching them out with no notice, we actually gave people notice. We actually walked people through the story. We actually considered, if I'm going to tell someone that they're redundant, what is the What is the literal walk path that they're going to have? Are they going to be walking past their teammates? Okay, let's do something about that. So we thought through every aspect of that and tried to make it as dignified as possible.
Mm. As someone who has experienced that whole shock of, even though knowing that you're working towards redundancy, that whole shock of someone coming to your desk and taking you for what you think is something else, and then you're gobsmacked, and in total shock, and it is an overwhelming experience, and to have that care about the experience of your people.
Yeah. Look, I think that's absolutely crucial. And the reality is ours wasn't a 10-man program. We were closing not just Holden, but the automotive industry. So in Holden alone, there was close to 3,000 people that were impacted. There was some 40 to 60,000 people across Australia were impacted because obviously Hold, Ford and Toyota were closing. Now, we obviously had to take care of our workforce, but we decided to also do what we could to support the supply chain. And we opened up our centres for them as well. But for me, the key was helping our people understand that redundancy doesn't have to be a difficult process. We can actually do it in the right way. We can offer them help and support and give them the greatest start to the next job as we possibly could.
And removing that fear and uncertainty.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Job displacement can have a significant impact on our psychological well-being, personal efficacy, and the ability to be optimistic for the future. How was this considered in your process?
As I mentioned before, we built a robust health and wellbeing component to our transition program. So we wanted to make sure that people felt they were valuable. We wanted to make sure that people knew who they were, knew what personal brand meant to them as well as the outside world. So we spent a significant amount of time looking at this. We first of all did mental health first aid training for all of our supervisors and all of our leaders. And that was important. So as people went through this journey, we could identify the signs and then offer support where needed. Within our transition centre, we run a number of programs, and in particular, it was also about having a healthy mind. So we partner with groups like Beyond Blue and EAP providers, but we then got involved with men's sheds and thought about the future and how people could still have support networks post Holden. We set up alumni groups. We also had lots of conversations with them individually about their own career. The reality is, redundancy can seem bad, but for a lot of people, it's actually a catalyst to do something that they've always dreamt of doing. So we had some really positive conversations. I remember one in particular. I had a guy coming into our centre going, "Jamie, I'm just a car builder and I don't have a future." And I said, "Well, all right, let's dream a bit. What did you want to do when you left school?" And this was a young lad. He was probably early 20s. And he goes, "Oh, I wanted to be a firefighter, but I just found myself in my first job here at Holden. I haven't left." And I said, "Well, you've got a 4-year program to get yourself right physically and mentally. Why can't you be a firefighter?" You could see him light up going, "Oh, yeah." So we helped him dream. And then we actually helped put him on a health and wellbeing program to improve his health. We did a whole heap of things to support his journey. And guess what? Long story short, he got his dream. We wanted people to realize that redundancy isn't the end of the road. It's an opportunity to see that you have amazing skill sets. You are a unique person in yourself, and this can be a catalyst or a springboard for you to do something that you've always dreamt of doing. And yes, you may have the job you've always dreamt of doing, but let's help you dream again and come up with a new direction.
That whole thing of redundancy being all doom and gloom can be the perception of some, and in those early days of experiencing it as well, it is hard to see into the future. So to have that hope to work towards and belief that you could build your confidence to work towards something else would be so empowering to the people in the workforce.
Yeah. And I think we took it on as a personal responsibility, and I'm talking the Holden leadership team here, that we could put certain things in place to give people the right mindset. So we ran sessions on mindset and expectations. We actually gave them some guidance around finances, and we had a section in our transition center that talked about doing an energy audit on your home and talk about budgeting and managing credit card debt. We went to lengths on their finance alone, because if you set that aside and they feel comfortable with that, they're more likely to pursue another opportunity down the track because they feel confident.
I remember visiting the transition centre after my own redundancy. I wanted to come and see what I had missed out on. And I walked into that place. It was like a couple of days after my own experience, and I walked in and I was greeted, and it felt so good. I felt really like I was meeting friends. And the lady who took me through, her name was Penny, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, she was showing me all the different services, and I'll never forget the wall that she proudly showed me of everyone who had moved on to something else.
Yep.
It's amazing. Something so, you know, just I'm getting shivers talking about it. It really made an impression on me.
Yeah. Look, for me, having that experience, I mean, you were coming and visiting, but if you're an employee and you have that same experience, how much better are you going to look at your future? And we all know that if you have a positive mindset, you're more likely to have better outcomes in anything that you do. So that was part of the positive psychology.
It's wonderful. Your team referred to you as the Velvet Sledgehammer. Why was that?
Look, I mean, I got that towards the end of our closure program, and it doesn't sound good, does it, Velvet Sledgehammer? But it was really a compliment from a couple of my HR guys in particular. And one of the guys said, look, you have this unique ability to do some really hard things, including redundancy and terminations. And we had obviously some difficult warnings and disciplines that we had to go through that period of time. He said, but you always do it with a soft touch. You always leave the person feeling there's some dignity and respect to the process, even if they've done wrong. And whilst you're able to break down barriers, you're able to break down people's personal walls that they had put up, you were able to do it in such a way that it was done softly.
Positive organisational behaviours, all of these were displayed in your process, and it really solidifies for me the importance of treating people with care and humanity.
What I found interesting is that I've now worked with lots of companies in the redundancy and restructure and transition space, and I often get asked questions around the right approach and why would we bother doing that, just exit them out of the door. Why would we spend money on programs like this? And I think at the end of the day, the money we spent on this program was completely far outweighed by the performance benefits we got with our existing workforce that was still working, as well as the brand. The brand was at its highest peak when we were going through redundancy programs, because we were getting media and people going into dealerships going, you know what, I'm so proud of how you've managed your workforce, even though you're exiting. I had to buy a Holden. So it impacted our sales in a positive way. So we also had people online going, you know, I'm so proud of my 30 years at Holden, and they recognise me, and we had Jimmy Barnes, singing us off and celebrating us. That is why we were willing to spend the money on the transition program, because yes, we got financial gain because we outperformed ourselves significantly through that time, but we also got a personal reward where I can put my hand on my heart and say, you know what, we've done the right thing by our people. We can put a hand on our heart and say every one of our people had every opportunity to get a new career. And guess what? They're now out there looking for opportunities for our workers, and they're now out there promoting Holden. The flow-on effect was huge.
Going back to my visit to the transition centre and Penny showing me a room for the kids.
The kids' corner.
Yeah, and she explained the whole reason behind that. You know, people weren't coming in because they had the 3 o'clock pickup or whatever, but they made this area for people, so they had to come in. That's showing such care and making people feel so valued.
Yeah. I think if companies and individuals look at redundancy as a pivotal point in someone's life, that this one decision can give them a positive outlook and a springboard, or can completely demoralize them and make them not feel their value. If you take that perspective alone and go, I'm actually impacting an individual's life with this discussion, it makes you rethink the process. So if that's all I do as a career is help people think about this from a people point of view, I think I've done my job.
Since Holden's, you've developed a program to support organisations with planning, preparing and performing redundancy.
Yes.
How does this benefit an organisation when this requirement arises?
Look, we decided at the start of COVID actually to create this new brand, this new product called the People Shift. And the whole intent of the People Shift was to give a cost-effective program that leaders can access to help step through a redundancy program. Now, the reason I did this was I had just finished a major redundancy program with a huge multinational company, and they hired me as a consultant for weeks and weeks, costing tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And I sat there going, if I have to do a redundancy program from scratch, where do I get my information from? So I thought, I'll do a Google search, and I typed in redundancy process. There's actually nothing online. You can find articles on legislation and formulas and what the legal side is, but there's nothing that says do this, then do this, then do this. So I thought, well, let's create this step-by-step process so HR professionals or leaders, depending on the size of your organization, can actually have a process so they don't even have to think. And even better, why don't I create a process that has a people focus in every step? Why don't I help talk you through those steps so that as you're going through a workforce planning document, you're going, well, maybe we don't need the redundancies because we can do this, this, and this. Maybe when I'm thinking about that conversation, I'll set up walk plans. So I know that they're not walking past their people and having the walk of shame. We deliberately called it the People Shift because you want to shift your focus towards people. And what we've actually included in this product is it's not just a step-by-step spreadsheet. It does have a book that walks you through it, but we also give you all the tools and resources you need to do it. So we have a comms plan that we give you. We give you scripts, we give you letters, we give you training packs so you can train your leaders in how to do redundancies. And in that training pack, it also talks about employee emotions. So if you're having to talk about redundancy with someone, they're going to be at different stages of the change curve. So we talk about the change curve. And if someone's at anger, how do you handle that? We wanted to create a program that wasn't just a step-by-step process. We wanted to give you all the tools on that journey. So this steps you through from go to woe, including a chapter at the end about rebuilding culture post-redundancy, because your remaining employees are going to be impacted.
Yeah.
And my heart is to give people a better outcome when it comes to redundancy, not just the individuals, but the companies as well.
Yeah. When we were talking about the brand and the impact on the company, corporate social responsibility is a real focus these days. And when an organisation is seen to be taking care of their workers, it has a positive impact for the future, doesn't it?
It completely does. And I think there's so many aspects to this. Employees aren't, if you treat them well, are probably not going to go on Facebook and completely bag your company, right? Unions equally are not going to go into the media and bag your company. In fact, the unions were actively talking about how great our program was in the media. And so there's a positive brand component. There was a positive productivity component. Our business outperformed. We won 5 years in a row through our closure program, most significantly improved plant within General Motors worldwide for cost. Right? We won quality awards. We won cost awards. Our absenteeism over a 7-year period went from 9% to 3%.
Yeah.
There's every metric improved significantly. So the benefits are huge.
Yeah. Amazing what can happen when you have the ability to invest in your people.
Absolutely.
At a time of, great disruption and change. What is one key piece of advice you have for organisations that might find themselves having to downsize?
Look, don't just run a process. And I see this a lot. And again, I'm working with some large multinationals and they've been doing redundancies time and time again over years. And I walk through the process that they have, and it's literally a process. If you view a redundancy as a process, you're going to get a process outcome, which is people will leave cold-hearted, no support, or feel like they're not valued. Always take a people element in everything that you do. And that goes right down to when you're writing a letter, a redundancy letter, it doesn't have to just say you finish on Friday and goodbye.
Yeah.
You can actually, because if it's a true redundancy, it's not performance related. Yeah. So you can do little things like, thank you for your time and the impact you made to our business. That's a good statement.
Yes.
It sounds simple, but build a people-focused approach in every step of the way, and I guarantee you your program will be better. You'll get better outcomes with your remaining employees. And I just want to touch on that remaining employees piece very quickly.
Yeah.
When you don't treat people well in the process, your remaining employees will look at you and go, are we just a number? Is that how they truly value us? All of a sudden, you're not just impacting those leaving the business, you're impacting those remaining. And I guarantee you at some point, their productivity is going to drop, or they won't give you discretionary effort because they'll realize that they're just a number to you.
And that whole momentum goes of, putting your best self forward in your work. And
Absolutely. And in fact, going back to the Holden case study, we saw the opposite. After a redundancy program, we actually saw an improvement in our productivity because we celebrate our people as they left. And we actually had people going, you know what? We didn't expect you to take care of everyone like you did. And all of a sudden you saw the pride come out. You saw them step up and go, you know what? I know when I leave, I'm going to get the support I need. Our productivity increased.
Besides your own program, do you have a book, a TED talk, or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with listeners?
Yeah, look, I think there's a number of resources that I regularly tap into. I like listening to Simon Sinek. I think he does have a good people-first approach and, people before data and so forth. There's an amazing book by a lady by the name of Liz Wiseman, and she writes a book called Multipliers. And it's not restructure or redundancy related, but it's about being a leader that's a multiplier, not a diminisher, and some really good practical principles in that book. Those two are probably the two that sort of really got me thinking down this path initially.
I haven't heard of that book, so I'll be sure to check it out.
Yeah, great.
Jamie, as we come to the end of the podcast, how are you taking care of your well-being?
Wow, that's a very good question. Sometimes not as well as I should. No, look, I think I'm very much an optimist. I'm a true believer that even your worst experiences in life, and I've been through plenty in my time, they create the person that you are today. And you have a choice when you go through negative situations, when you go through poor judgments or poor outcomes that people have put on you. So sometimes it's not even me that causes the bad stuff. Yeah. You can view that in a negative sense and say, woe is me, and you're end up going to stay in that position. I think my own personal well-being comes from knowing that even the bad situations can lead to me being more resilient, have a better perspective on what is good and bad. And I think there's very much a mindset that you can approach things with a positive light going, okay, so that hurt a little.
Yeah.
That situation made me go backward a step, but you know what? I'm not going to allow that next time, or I'm going to take this step to improve it next time. I think having a positive outlook on everything you do changes your future trajectory.
The benefit of positive emotion, it widens our perspective and broadens our thinking, so that when we have that positive outlook, we're empowered to see things a whole lot differently.
Absolutely.
Jamie, thanks again for joining me today.
Not a problem. Always a pleasure.
It's been great. And thank you for listening. To find out more about Jamie, visit thepeopleshift.com. There you'll find details about his program. If you found this podcast of benefit, please share it with someone you think will benefit too. I love to receive your feedback, and I would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. I invite you to connect with me through LinkedIn and Facebook. Until next time, wishing you well-being. Bye for now.